people seem to get more upset by what people say these days than what people do. I don't understand that. I find a lot of stuff Nick Fuentes says to be disgusting, but in my opinion, even someone like George W. Bush, for instance, is way more of a sickening person than Nick Fuentes. He's responsible for millions of deaths.
Yeah, you don't remember when Nick Fuentes invaded a foreign country, killed 1 million people, and then ran a torture program? And then...
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Jimmy Dore Show. I am your guest host, Chris Keene. I'm here with Jimmy Dore. We've been talking about Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro a lot today. They're in a feud right now, largely over Tucker's decision to interview Nick Fuentes. We'll get into that.
The fragmentation of the political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. And Tucker Carlson last week was aided, abetted, celebrated for normalizing Nazism within the Republican Party.
He has said normalize 3 times so far. Let's see if he says it again. This is woke language. Don't normalize that. Just by talking to someone, you're normalizing it, apparently.
By the mainstay organization of the traditional right, the Heritage Foundation. Now, before we explain what's been happening, let's make one thing clear. This is not about free speech or cancellation. It was never about free speech or cancellation. The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes.
There it is again. We're normalizing. Just by talking to someone, you're normalizing it. You can't have a conversation with someone. I understand the critique that you should, if you interview someone like Nick Fuentes, you should push back. You should criticize his beliefs, or at least question him on them. But this idea that you're normalizing someone just by having a conversation, the media has always interviewed people who are thought of to be controversial. I've seen Jeffrey Dahmer was interviewed by the news. If you've interviewed a U.S. president, you've interviewed a mass murderer. Every recent, at least, U.S. president has dropped endless amounts of bombs on the Middle East. This idea that you're normalizing someone or condoning them just by talking to them is really toxic, I think.
Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line.
All right. Then Tucker was on Megyn Kelly, and he explains why he talked to Nick Fuentes.
And then I got all these calls from people saying, do you know anything? I don't know anything really about Nick Fuentes, other than he's attacking my dad, my wife, and my son. And it was like, actually, Nick Fuentes is the single most influential commentator among young men. Like, period.
He's got 5 million subscribers on Rumble.
It's bonkers. And then it turns out that, he has no advertisers. They've been trying to cancel him since freshman year in college. Ben Shapiro actually tried to shut him down freshman year in college. And it didn't work. In fact, it had the opposite effect. So I was like, And so that
So Nick Fuentes is more popular than ever. They've tried to shut him up and cancel him. It doesn't work. That never works. Anytime you try to cancel something or get rid of it, it just makes it people want to listen to it more. Banning things does not get rid of them. The way you fight someone like Nick Fuentes, if you don't like his ideas, you fight bad ideas with good ideas. This is a point that Ben Shapiro has made. Yeah, he used to make that all the time. That was his whole thing, is like, we should be able to debate. We should fight bad ideas with good ideas. We should not cancel people or deplatform them or say, don't talk to that person. People used to say this about Ben Shapiro. Don't platform Ben Shapiro. Don't even talk to Ben Shapiro. Otherwise, you're a racist and you're platforming dangerous ideas just by having a conversation with Ben Shapiro. So it's a ridiculous notion.
1 million people I know, like, maybe I should interview Nick Fuentes to hear what is this actually? And so I decided to do it, and I thought it would be controversial. I didn't think it would become what it's become. I'm not going to offer any defense other than, it's kind of interesting. I've interviewed I'm doing this for 34 years. So I've interviewed everybody, most of them bad people, to be honest.
Right.
I interviewed Liberian militia leaders during the Liberian Civil War, all cannibals, every single one of them had tasted human flesh. And first of all, I kind of like them. I'm just being honest because I like people. Don't agree with cannibalism. Pretty opposed.
Right. See, you can talk to people and find out about them. It doesn't mean you agree with everything they do or that you're part of their tribe or whatever it is. This idea that if you talk to someone, or if we, as we saw in a previous story, if you stand next to someone, even apparently it means that you agree with them and you're validating their view. No, you're having a conversation.
Just that way. I just like people, and the closer, if you can like smell someone and talk to them, like it's hard to not see the human in the person, even if he's a cannibal. None of those were controversial. Like I interview people who are hated, in some cases like demonstrably evil, and I ask them, why did you do that? And what's your account of yourself? Like tell me who you are. What do you believe? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, that was the first thing I wanted to achieve at Nick Fuentes. It's like, what is this? Tell me. I'll give you 2 hours. I have only watched your clips for like a minute long. I want to hear, like, why don't you describe what you think? Because I think that's the small role that I play, which is to get documentary evidence of people describing what they think. I did it with Putin. I'll probably do it with every other bad person in the world because I'm interested. Not because I agree with them.
That used to be normal for journalists to interview people, to get their take.
I remember when Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes interviewed Ayatollah Khomeini as they were holding Americans hostage.
Yes. Yeah, apparently he agrees with that guy.
People used to interview Charlie Manson all the time.
Yes,
that was a big get. You get to interview Charlie Manson. What the hell?
Right. That doesn't mean that you're a murderer.
That's right.
Just because you talked to Charles Manson, like
no, I think anytime you interview someone, that means that you agree with everything they say. Okay,
it's so ridiculous.
And second, I wanted to say something very specific to Nick Fuentes, and it's this, and I said it, which is, I think it's totally legitimate to criticize any foreign country, from Belgium to Congo to Israel, because they're foreign countries.
Yes.
And I'll never give up that right. In fact, it's an obligation, I would say, and to be reasonable about it, and not, but what's in America's interest? Totally legitimate. It is totally illegitimate and very specifically unchristian to attack people for their DNA. Like, I hate this group.
You wanted him to hear that.
We all have to hear that.
What I hear you say.
See, there's a huge difference between criticizing Israel, for instance, and being anti-Semitic. And actually, one of the things that I don't like about people like Nick Fuentes is they blur those lines because if you try to criticize Israel, a lot of people will call you anti-Semitic. And if someone like Fuentes comes around who is actually anti-Semitic, then they're like, see, we told you shouldn't say these things because it's anti-Semitic. Well, no, they're totally different arguments. What Tucker's saying is he's criticizing our foreign policy and what Israel has done in Gaza. He's not criticizing a group of people based on their DNA. There's a huge difference there.
Sort of, is that you wanted to reach him. You wanted him.
Of course I want to reach him and everyone watching.
But were you trying to help him in a way?
I want to tell the truth as I understand it with the ever-present knowledge that I'm kind of a buffoon and I'm often wrong. I supported the Iraq War. I remind myself of that every single day. I've made a ton of mistakes, a ton of errors and judgments. I've been carried away by enthusiasm and particularly by anger many times in my life. I spoke to the Speaker of the House about this today. We have a sitting member of Congress from Florida called Randy Fine, who was literally texted or put on Twitter, we should kill them all. Every single one. Someone texted a picture of a dead baby and he laughs at it. Mm. And it's like, this guy's a lawmaker who's appropriating money to a military committing genocide, and that's cool? It's not cool.
No.
And let's just be honest. That is much worse than anything Nick Fuentes has said. Period.
So
that's the crazy thing. People seem to get more upset by what people say these days than what people do. I don't understand that. I find a lot of stuff Nick Fuentes says to be disgusting, but in my opinion, even someone like George W. Bush, for instance, is way more of a sickening person than Nick Fuentes. He's responsible for millions of deaths.
Yeah, you don't remember when Nick Fuentes invaded a foreign country, killed 1 million people, and then ran a torture program? And then imprisoned the people who revealed that torture program?
Of course.
Huh.
Yes.
You remember that?
And no one will complain if you interview George W. Bush. In fact, he goes on late night television and people think he's cute because he paints pictures now.
He gave Michelle Obama a piece of candy at a funeral.
Yeah, he's cute now.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a lovely man. I mean, I see posts online of George W. Bush and people say that line of, I miss when we had decency in the White House.
You know what's funny? Going back to that last story with Zendaya, doesn't want to stand on a red carpet with, what's her name?
Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney, because Sydney Sweeney voted for Trump. And I don't know if you saw Jimmy Carter's funeral, but Barack Obama and Donald Trump were sitting together, giggling their heads off.
Right.
They're sitting there having a good laugh.
Yep.
So it's okay for Barack Obama to be goofing around on camera with President Trump, but you can't. An actress can't be seen with another actress for voting for the guy who's goofing around with Barack Obama. He's not afraid to be seen with Donald Trump. In fact, he's goofing around with them.
I mean,
this is all crazy.
That's such proof that they have us fighting with each other,
yes,
instead of going after the people actually in power. It's okay for them to do it, but they want us fighting with each other.
Pushback has been when you had Jeffrey Dahmer or the Ku Klux Klan, et cetera, these journalists went after them, like exposed the terrible things. And Nick Fuentes has said a long list of very vile things.
Big time, including attacking my dad, which was the most vile of all, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seemed to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people? Say, why didn't you raise any of that?
Do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you a cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with Putin. Why aren't you yelling at him? Okay. Why? So I can show that I'm a good person? I care about what my wife thinks, my children think, and God thinks. And that's it. All right. So Tucker did the interview he wanted to do. If you want a different interview, you do it. That makes sense. I don't get it. I don't think the point of Tucker's interview was to be this super, let me get this guy. He was trying to understand this person more. So take from that what you will. Some people look at that as you're endorsing their ideas. I would have done it differently. I would have critiqued what this man thinks more, but I wasn't doing the interview. So if you're mad about it, do your own interview. So Shapiro then responds to this.
What I saw Tucker do was not whitewash his ideas, but try to put bumpers up on the guy. I know Tucker well, and I think that was his approach. And the way, if you want to put a bumper up on Nick Fuentes, is it helpful to say, you're fucking vile, you're an anti-Semite?
Yes.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it
that
is.
doesn't put a...
Yes, it
no,
is.
it isn't. That makes
Yes,
the
it
audience
is.
feel good because you have hand-to-hand combat, but it doesn't help change that guy's view
conversation.
or his extremity.
Exactly. So yes, you can say that, and tell him he's vile. Do that. That doesn't change people's minds. What changed people's minds is, like Ben Shapiro has said his whole career, you fight bad ideas with good ideas. You talk to people. You have conversations. Even the most vile people, they're still a human being. Talk to them, and maybe you'll change their mind. But name calling and ostracizing people, silencing them, that does not change anyone's mind. It just makes it worse.
Is extremist at all.
When you say to somebody in an interview, do you condemn anti-Semitism? And then the person says, sure, which is what Nick Fuentes said. He said, I'm not an anti-Semite, which is blatantly untrue.
Yeah.
A responsible journalist would then follow up, demonstrating that that is false. Tucker did not do that. He allowed him to get away with that, and then he allowed him to talk about, quote-unquote, organized Jewry, followed by Nick Fuentes being treated to a disquisition by Tucker Carlson about why Christian Zionists of all human beings on earth are the people that he hates the most.
He took that back.
You can't take that back. How do
can
you take that back?
That's crazy, especially for someone like Ben Shapiro to say, because he in his past has said terrible things about Arabs, for instance, and he took that back. He had a whole page on his website saying, here's all the dumb things I've said throughout my career, and I take them back. I apologize. So this idea that you can't say something wrong once and then change your mind doesn't make any sense.
He went on with...
And it allows no one to grow as a human being. It's not a healthy
Dave
mindset.
Smith the next day, the next week, whatever, Monday, Tuesday this week, and said, that was stupid. I didn't mean that. He said, I'm angry at people like Lindsey Graham. I'm angry at people like Ted Cruz because he thinks they run headfirst in these conflicts and they don't think about what's going to happen to American
wait, hold
kids.
on.
I did ask him yesterday about the criticism that he didn't give Nick Fuentes a hard time, right? He didn't bring up the stuff that we were talking about. No, he didn't. And here's what he said. It seemed to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people who say, why didn't you raise any of that?
Do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you.
Doesn't accomplish much to do that.
I agree with
did-
him.
by the
I
way,
agree. No, I agree. I agree with him. I agree with him. He did the interview that he wanted to do for a reason. The entire question is what.
And then Shapiro says that he did what he wanted to for a reason. So just like basically calling him an anti-Semite. That's what I get from that. That's why Tucker did the interview that way. And this is the game. And I just don't understand it. There's plenty of valid criticisms to be made of Israel and what they've done in Gaza. It doesn't make you an anti-Semite, but that's the narrative that Shapiro is pushing.
I consider Tucker Carlson to be on my
I
side.
got it.
My point is, so 2 points. One, you have to define your side. You do. There are limits to the
All
side.
the people who don't want to kill others based on their political ideology.
So I would agree with that, except for the fact that, as you showed, Nick Fuentes wants to kill others based on their political
He's not
ideology.
on my side. He's not with me.
My point is that Tucker treated him as though he was on his side.
And I see it differently. I think he
I
did
know-
an
I know you do.
exploratory interview where there was a possible attempt to put a bumper up on this guy.
I think that we don't have to go over ground that we've already covered. We can agree to disagree on that, and everyone can make up their own mind after going and watching the interview yourself.
So, I mean, I agree that I think Tucker should have been more critical of Fuentes in the interview. But this idea, this thing that Shapiro does of just calling you anti-Semitic because you didn't do a different interview is just crazy, or because you criticize Israel. It's a ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense to me. And if he hates it this much, then you interview Fuentes, Ben Shapiro. You know, you can get him on your show. You can have it out. That's what you used to tell everybody, fight bad ideas with good ideas. What happened to that? I don't know. Apparently, if you say bad things, you can't take them back. Well, here's Ben Shapiro. Israelis like to build. Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. This is not a difficult issue. Settlements rock. This is a very old tweet from Shapiro that he has apologized for. So it's ironic that he's saying you can't do that, considering he has done that. And I just have this here at the end. This is a guy I love a lot, Daryl Davis. This is a black man who befriends members of the KKK, and he's gotten hundreds of KKK members to leave the Klan. He says, the most radical act I ever committed was extending my hand in friendship to those who were taught to be my enemy. That's how you change minds. I know not everyone might agree with that, but that's how you truly change people. You don't do it through banning and screaming and all that. You do it with humanity and with love. It's the Martin Luther King thing. You can't drive out hate with hate. Only love can do that. I don't know what happened to that. That is just the truth. So that's Tucker and Ben. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments.
Come see us in Australia. Second show's added in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. We'll see you in Burbank, California, the day after Thanksgiving. It's a Friday. And then Pottstown, Pennsylvania, December 6th. Plus, January 11th, we're going to be in Waikiki at the Blue Note. Tickets not available yet for them, but go to jimmydore.com for a link for all the other tickets.